All right, this lesson is on opening the software, opening and creating a new document, saving a document, changing the settings for those documents after the fact, and then also the importance of backing up a document. We'll go ahead and locate the software on a PC. You'll go usually to your Start menu, and then under All Programs, you should locate all of your programs, and you'll be able to find the Illustrator software that you've installed. And then on a Mac, they're usually docked down here. And if we just go ahead and click Adobe Illustrator, we'll let it pop open. Once it pops open, you're going to get something that looks like this. There may not be any files in here for you if you haven't worked on anything. These are just recent files. To create a new document, you're going to go ahead and select here, go to New Document. And then you have different options here. It'll tell you the most recent types of formats that you've used. But if you go here, you can go to mobile and it'll give you different template sizes for some common mobile devices that you might want to use. If you go to web, it'll do the same. It'll give you some commonly used sizes. If you go to print, it'll give you some presets here also. And what you'll notice is as you click through different ones here, the specifications here will change, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and go to letter, and what you'll notice is that it gives you certain settings here. And now the width and height seem like odd numbers even though it's letter size because it's set to point. So you can go ahead and change the measurement type here to inches, and then you'll notice it's an 8.5 by 11. For the purposes of this project, we're gonna be working with an 8 by 10. Now I'll be providing you with a template, but just so you know, we're going to be working with 8 by 10, and you can use either orientation vertical or orientation horizontal. I'll have templates for both. Okay. And then artboards are ways to create multiple pages within one document. It's not really though for designing a book. Illustrator is not typically used for designing things like books and multi-page items, but say that you're designing a poster and you need to design the front and the back of that poster, then you might create two artboards in the same document, okay? But we're just gonna go ahead and leave it at one. And then bleeds are things that have to do when you set things up for printing at a professional printers, but we're not gonna worry about that. And there's two different color modes, CMYK, which is for printing, and then there's RGB. We're going to be working with CMYK since this is a print piece. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and hit create. And that just created you a new document here. Okay. Now I'm just going to go ahead and draw something on here using my shape tool just so that there's an element on the page so that we can see it. And now once I have something in here, I'm just going to go ahead and save it. To save, you go File, Save As. And I like to name things with my name. I led Garcia, and then whatever it is, like draft 1. Okay. Now, if you're working on the lab, if you go to the desktop, there should be a save folder. So I'm going to go ahead and save it in there. I'm going to hit save. Okay. Now these Illustrator options for saving will pop up. You want to leave these the same. The only one that you need to know what it does, and this is not for the purposes of this class because you should be using the most recent Illustrator, but basically if you did have an older version and you wanted to make sure that you could retain everything exactly the same as you created it in Illustrator CC, you would select here and then select the older version that you're working on so that it would open correctly on your earlier version of the software, okay? But anyway, so just leave it on Illustrator CC and then hit OK. If I go ahead and I close out of that, to close you can either click there or you can do an edit close. And then if I minimize the windows, what I'll notice is if I go to my save folder on my desktop, my file is here. To open it, I can just go directly to it and I can double click on it that way. Or another way that I can do it is if I'm in here, I can go and open and I can go browse for it on the desktop and go into the save folder and open it this way. Okay. All right. Okay. So now one other thing that I do want to go over is how to edit your document setup after the fact. So let's say that you decided, hey, I want this to be a different dimension, or hey, I want to have this be a different orientation, landscape versus portrait. If you go up here, you can go to document setup. And if you go to edit artboards, you can go in here, and what you'll notice is it has these little diagonals. You can go here and just shrink it in manually, but you also have the width and the height. So let's say that you wanted to change the dimensions here. I can turn this into a 4 by 12 inches. Okay. And then if I just hit enter, it'll show up. And then to get out of that, I can select any tool here. Okay. And there's my file, or say that I wanted to change the orientation, I can go into document setup, edit artboards, and then I could change that here and it'll flip it around. Okay, but for your project you will be using an 8 by 10, either horizontal or vertical. Hit enter. But I will be providing you with a template for it, so you don't have to worry too much about how to set this up. This is just for future reference. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on that to get out of there, and then I'm going to do a file, save. It should save automatically in the location that you have it. Now, one thing that I'd like to recommend to people is that once they've saved it to their desktop in their save folder, that they don't rely on this being the only location that's keeping it. Irrespective of whether it's in the lab or it's on your computer, it always happens that something either goes wrong with the computer, or someone deletes your file, or somehow it gets corrupt. So it usually happens right before it's due. So what I always suggest is that you create a backup. So for instance, this is working off the desktop in the save folder. What I tell people is once you're done and it's been saved, go ahead and grab it and drag it into your flash drive or your hard drive, whatever you have, and drop it in there. And I usually tell people, go ahead and double click it and open it and make sure that it opens. Okay, and it did. So we're going to go ahead and just close out of that. Just to test it out to make sure that the copy that you're taking with you is current and is the correct one. Okay. What I also tell people is that if you worked on it at home or somewhere else on another location and you've backed it up here, make sure that you always open up the most current one, but do not work off of the flash drive. Always drag a copy back in here to replace the other one or keep the other one. You can name them with different names like draft 2, draft 3, draft 4, or whatever. I'm going to go ahead and replace it just because I want to replace it with my newer one, and then work off the one that's on your desktop, okay, not the one in your flash drive, just because computers have little mini power outages that we don't even detect, but that sometimes when you're saving and working directly from your flash drive, it can get your file to become corrupt. So always get out of that, get out of the habit of working from your flash drive, work directly from your desktop, copy when you're done, grab it, drag it, and put it in as your final backup in your flash drive. Okay? All right, that concludes your lesson. If you have any questions, please be sure to contact me.